most people, classical music is not in their life actively. Music is in their life, but more as an entertainment, more as something to dance on, something to sing along, therefore lyrics, something which punctuates different situations in life, like weddings, like national anthem performances, like funeral music. In other words, ritual situations. And then background music, most of the time, folk, pop, country, rap, rock, hip hop, which are there to basically act as an exciter for daily life, or perhaps also to give a different dimension to dailiness by being the special playlist that you like to listen to be in good mood, in good situation. So people create through their musical needs, with the criteria of their musical tastes, a need of music as a soundtrack of their lives. Of course, you can say that they enjoy films without to be filmmakers. They enjoy reading books without being writers. They enjoy listening to music, therefore, without being musicians. Though the music can be reproduced by ear, at least certain type of music. And that is very healthy, because you can sing it, you can be part of a choir, you can sing in a group with others, and you don't need to have learned the grammar of music in order to be participating in it. At least at some level of complexity of the musical language that's used. And not everybody has a perfect pitch, far from there. And that is not necessarily either a prerequisite which would be a way to ostracize the others, not at all. Most people have a sense of the pitch by the distance of the intervals. They might not be able to name them, but they feel them. The same way you can say that some people are more sensitive to some in-between color shades than others, without to be colorblind. So when they say people are tone deaf, I don't believe that. I think it's more that they remain at the level where the music speaks to their psyche, to their emotion, to their pride, if it's an anthem, to their excitement, if it's a dance, to their song, if it's a relationship, or perhaps a party, or perhaps something that celebrates a family, and you have children's songs, you have grown up to sing then lullabies to your children, or if you babysit children. In other words, music is not only a background for supermarkets, airports, and elevators, though it, or underground parking lots, which nevertheless fills in anguish of fear in a place where you're claustrophobic, and it gives you the capacity to daydream travel away from where you are. It's almost like as if it's an escapism tool by itself, even if not applied consciously as such. It's just that music is part of exercising, jogging, going to the gym, driving the car, going to the stores. I often ask in the stores who chooses the music that plays in the background. Most of them say corporate decisions or this or that playlist from this or this corporate decision that privileges the, I assume, targeted demographic of purchasers, style, genre of music that appeals, also soothes in hospitals or on telephone, waiting online to speak to somebody. They play for you something repetitively. So most people, in fact, live with music. They can use it because they can reach it. It's conserved, recorded, so you can carry it with you, reproduce it whenever you need, unlike until the 19th century where unless you had somebody in the family who knew how to play, you didn't have a direct access unless you were rich enough to afford musicians to come play at your home, hence chamber music. And then, of course, if you had to live some social sharing of great events retold by art forms like the myths or the history or the great storytellings of the human nature's belief in love, in hope, in other words, touches our soul's roots, is what 19th century had theater and opera for, and ballet and dance. Again, ephemeral forms of music sharing or singing or playing or both or all, acting as well in opera, work in Italian. And then today would say that since at least the second half of the 20th century, the great storytelling are not told so much, sometimes, but way more often by film than by opera, which is considered elitist, rare, expensive because of the seating. Though I wouldn't think that is necessarily the reason, because you have seats that are very expensive for rock concerts where you have thousands of people in stadiums. So it's not because it's restricted to a smaller number of audience in the opera. I think it's also because it represents an art form that is foreign to most people's awareness of what are the genre of music's expressions. People learn mathematics in school without becoming mathematicians. People learn sports and gym, how to be healthy in their body in school, but they don't become all athletes or sport people. And this way people use music more than they serve music, because they don't have to learn how to play it in order to enjoy it, since it's pre-recorded. It's basically like reheating in the microwave of something that can be heard and reserved at any time. You don't need to have ritualistic moments for music, at least when it's shared and played. No more than, with the rare exceptions of people going to movies in movie theaters, sharing with unknown people something in common, which is what you see, hear, and feel from what is told on the screen. And with the music of the storytelling. But when you do it individually, binging on some streaming device, you don't share it with others in real time. It's individual consumption. So at which levels does it touch you when you hear some people laugh or some people cry, perhaps not that often cry, when you don't find it funny or sad? And that is something that today with individual consumption people don't have so much, and therefore you don't have to be a filmmaker to make a film to watch it. You watch it because it's made by somebody up on a book or up on a story or up on a myth or up on whatever real life situation, retold through the genre of the film with creative writing and therefore music with it. That doesn't have to always be the companion of the screen. It can be also music on its own, creating its own storytelling, not necessarily opposite to the screen, but that has its. When I watch a film without the sound, you'll know the difference it makes. Because somewhere down the line, making music is delegated now to those who know how to, who studied to. So therefore, you rent nowadays a file, when before you used to purchase a recording, regardless the transaction. You hear something that was made so that if you want to hear it, you have access to it, without having to learn how to play it yourself in order to enjoy it. Now there is a very social aspect of guitar playing when you gather with friends to sing songs, or you want to impress somebody, because somehow there is a social connection through music at a certain level, not by Bach fugue per se, as a matter of fact, surely not, but rather, I don't know, a song on the guitar or a dance with the accordion that allows to have harmonies and melodies, and people can sing and play either folk music, meaning folklore music from their countries or from other countries, ethnomusicologically open-minded as we are today. We embrace the world's musical heritage beyond the classical music, Western Renaissance to nowadays classical music, which people often refer to and they think music is not part of their life. At least classical music. Or they would say it's boring, it's repetitive, I don't know when it's over. Listen to it only when I have a headache. I don't see the lyrics. It does not go through 3-minute songs format with, that could be true actually. But for anything, which sports you watch, which art forms you privilege to let your life exist with, film, video game, theater, sculpture, painting, figurative or not. And so the more you develop an awareness of the different forms of expression of humanity, in fact, from sports to art forms, everything is an act of humanity, an experience of being alive, which is transmitted to us by generations before us who have written these pieces for us to play or to share, as well as the music of today, which is sort of timeless because it uses the codes of yesterday with words of today, and it becomes a song which then marks a generation every 10, 20 rather years. You have people who say, oh, this is the love song of my time that I like the most, or this I used to dance on when we gathered. And so the social aspect of music, all kinds of music, is not to be disconnected from the classical music, just like classic ballet compared to modern dance, hip-hop and onwards. There is affiliation. You use the 7 tones of the circle of fifths, even if you're not aware of it as a non-musician, at least having not studied the grammar like you learned your mother tongue in school to learn how to read and write, without to be a writer, and perhaps without, by reading by yourself, capturing all the innuendos that are embedded or encoded in the text. The pleasure to reread a book that you liked, you rediscover more things, you reimagine things, you create your own imaginary world. You don't have to have it as seen by a filmmaker with the musician. That, in fact, in all these art forms, the music, the stage, the film, the art directors skew your view of the work. And the actors, for instance, embodying them, becoming the characters, therefore the transmitters of the storytelling, in whom you believe not as an actor, but because you forget their acting in order to enter in the story as a watcher, a listener, a spectator. And even if you know it, you like to see how they're going to treat it. And if you don't know how the story ends, then you're even more into this moment of early childhood where you like people to read you stories to fall asleep, because it makes you travel in imagination and then ultimately fall asleep into the dreams world. And music and dreams is very much in common. It's its own language, and classical music has branches that reach jazz through rock to hip hop onwards. There is affiliation, not necessarily obvious to most people. And regardless, being a musician, of course, I lived all my life so far trying to understand it, play it, teach it, record it, explain it, organize the knowledge of it, repertoire-wise, instrumental-wise, analytically, in the formal aspect of it, or in its very essence, and the styles and the genres and the times, through times and the countries and their individual connection from their own music that comes from their own souls, from their own origins, musical DNA of sorts. And then how it crisscrosses with the cultures of colonizing people or traveling people who conquest, or in other words, there is a movement where music has come through religion, through art, through ideology, to mean something. And if sacred music is a term, the usage of it is very personal for each to uplift their soul beyond their dailiness in hope and in love. That's why I think it is true that music, people don't always think that they need music to live with, but in fact either they impose the music of the backgrounds, or they listen to their choices through their playlists in their transports, in their headphones, walking to places or going from places. Sometimes they use it while they make homeworks or other aspects. They need to have it to fill in perhaps the emptiness that scares us, in the sense of the spiritual finitude and the expectation of the afterlife. All these causalities don't come intuitively in the thinking process of people who consume, as we would say today, music at any level, at any time, or any time, literally, whenever they need it. And if it brings them soothing moments through hardships or through joys, I find it to be a very beautiful link between humanity anonymously. Some of my improvisations, I read some on YouTube, some people whom I will probably never meet write to me when they do, if they do, what it meant for them to hear it when they were in what they were in their psychological, if you want, season of their life. So it's not per se therapeutic, because that would be pushing it too much to assume it, but at least it can be soothing or solacing or bringing a meaning to something that you yearn innerly towards a poem or towards a music or towards an expression of human art form. Thank you.